Samsung's flagship Galaxy launch has always managed to make a big splash, and this year's Galaxy S7 was certainly no exception. That is, even when the refresh is much more of an evolution. Case in point, the new Galaxy S7 is almost a spitting image of last year's Galaxy S6. Samsung's approach was that of refinement, building on its newest design. Fortunately, the Korean giant did listen to many of the market's criticisms last year. Let's check out if Samsung perfected its flagship in our Galaxy S7 review. Design. If you've checked out last year's Galaxy S6, the new Galaxy S7 will look very familiar. The design, build are almost identical. We have the same rounded metal frame, which is sandwiched by glass panels on the front and back. That means that the body is slippery as ever and collects fingerprint smudges like there's no tomorrow. Additionally, the same 5.1 display size is maintained, at least, on the standard Galaxy S7, therefore, the phone's footprint is nearly identical. One notable difference is that the sides of the glass back curve into the frame. Samsung introduced this design cue on the Note 5 and has carried it over to the Galaxy S7. The curves look fantastic and make for a better feel in hand, so we're glad that Samsung has done it. Another improvement on the back is the reduction of the camera protrusion. Many users weren't a fan of the noticeable camera hump on the Galaxy S6. Samsung accomplished this by reworking the sensor and making the phone slightly thicker. The module isn't completely flush with the chassis, but it's really close. Samsung does a great job with minimizing bezel. That display dominates the front with the 72.1% screen-to-body ratio. As the front glass nears the metal frame, it too curves. The 2.5D contour is of course not as drastic as the sloping edges on the S7 Edge variant, but those who take notice will like the subtle eye candy. On the bottom, we have the familiar physical home button that doubles up as a fingerprint scanner. Samsung has ever so slightly increased its size from the S6. The fingerprint recognition now works better than ever. And, as usual, the home button is flanked by a capacitive back button on the right and recent tabs button is on the left. You'll also still find the power button on the right side of the frame and the volume rocker on the left. The tactile response of the buttons is just right. They are neither too hard nor soft to press. Performance. Samsung renews its partnership with Qualcomm on the Galaxy S7, at least in some markets, such as the US. Other markets have Samsung's latest Exynos chipset. That means that the bleeding-edge Snapdragon 820 system and a chip lies under the hood. Qualcomm's current highest-end processor is a quad-core beast and uses the company's newest graphics chip, the Adreno 530. It is also coupled with a whopping 4 GB of RAM. In short, this means that the Galaxy S7 is blistering fast. It eats up UI navigation, apps, and multitasking with ease. However, the performance is not 100% consistent. You do run into slight hiccups here and there. That's assumingly not due to the hardware, but because Samsung's heavy touch with user interface, which we'll discuss in the review's software section. The Nexus 6P, which runs on the older Snapdragon 810 chipset and stock Android, performs noticeably smoother, more fluid overall. The onboard storage options are not expansive anymore. The Galaxy S6 was available with up to 128 GB. Many carriers only offer the 32 GB version, but the 64 GB model does exist. Fortunately, Microsoft expansion makes a glorious return into the Galaxy S line. Users can add up to 200 GB extra via a Microsoft card. The slot is built into the SIM tray on the top of the phone. Yet another feature that makes a considerate return is water dust proofing. The Galaxy S7 is far from being a rugged phone, but an IP68 rating certainly helps. This means that the phone can supposedly survive submersion in up to 1.5 meters of water for 30 minutes. Display. The Galaxy S7 continues to use Samsung's leading Super AMOLED display. Samsung manufactures the panel itself and somehow manages to improve it each time. In other words, it's as stunning as ever to view. The color reproduction is balanced between vibrancy and accuracy. The screen can get impressively bright, so outdoor visibility is no problem, something that plagues lower-class AMOLED panels. Viewing angles are also second to none. There's no quality degradation whatsoever when looking at the screen at even the most extreme angles. That means that anyone who glances over at your phone will catch the screen's brilliance. The Galaxy S7's display remains at a 5.1 inches size. The pixel count is also still set at QHD resolution, 2560 by 1440 pixels, so the image quality is crisp and clear as ever. This time around, Samsung finally joins the always-on display club. As implied, the always-on feature leaves information on the screen when the phone is on standby, like the time, date, and battery percentage. Because the S7 has an OLED display, the impact on battery life is minimal. Only the pixels that display the information are lit. It's certainly a convenient feature, but we wish that it showed more notifications. As it currently stands, you'll only see missed phone calls and text messages, that is, if you use Samsung's messaging app. There are a vast array of other notifications that we can get in a day that Samsung's always-on display doesn't show. Camera. One of the Galaxy S7's main upgrades from last year was the camera. The Galaxy S6's camera was already impressive, but that didn't mean that Samsung was going to stop. Two improvements that were focused on were low light and autofocus performance. The new module lens size was increased from f/1.9 aperture in the Galaxy S6 to f/1.7. But that's not all. The pixels were also made larger. They're now 1.4 micrometers, as opposed to the standard size of 1.12 micrometers. This means that the pixels are able to capture a lot more light than before. Samsung calls its newer, faster autofocusing technology dual pixel. Essentially, each and every pixel in the sensor is split in half and can assist in focusing. In a typical sensor, only a handful of pixels do this. This makes the Galaxy S7's autofocus lightning fast. You can't even see it happen in most conditions, it's crazy fast. The reproduction produces very sharp and colorful results. In order to pack the extra technology, the capture resolution had to drop to 12 MP, from 16 MP in the Galaxy S6. Although, that's still plenty. Here are some camera samples. An example of the Galaxy S7's battery usage over 21 hours. One of the biggest complaints about Samsung's previous Galaxy S was the battery life. but that should now be a thing of the past. The Galaxy S7 packs a considerable 3000 mAh capacity. That is in fact the same amount as the 5.7 inches Note 5. Impressive. Therefore, this is a phone that should consistently get most people through a day, with little to spare. And if you're really in a bind, there are 2 tiers of power-saving modes that reduce the phone's background activity. Everyone has different smartphone usage, so the battery usage graph isn't completely telling. My usage was split between Verizon's network and Wi-Fi, while using common apps like Chrome, Maps, Camera, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Google Play Music, Feedly, and Messenger throughout the day. The battery drain was consistent and I had battery to spare at night. I would have expected the Galaxy S7 to do a little better on idle. That smooth slope on the graph above was while I was sleeping, but it's not terrible. Final thoughts. It may not seem like it on the surface, but the Galaxy S7 is a fantastic update. Last year's Galaxy S6 was a great phone, but not without faults, and Samsung made all the right corrections to push the package closer to perfection. The subpar battery life and lack of storage expansion are now thankfully a thing of the past, and the performance of the new camera blows even further past the competition. Although, we can't help feel that TouchWiz is still holding Samsung back. Even with a beast of a chipset, the UI is not as smooth as it can be. Samsung has supposedly lightened it up, but that fails to be seen. www.gadgetribute.com web link in its defense. TouchWiz does bring some nifty features that stock Android is missing, like multi-window and theming.